A very, very good morning and welcome to this conversation on a very topical topic, how employee self-care and health boosts business. You all will agree with me that the criticality of good health is taught to us very early in life. However, it is very hard to live up to it. Even though we have come a long way in adopting technologies both at work and in our personal life, the question remains, is that getting us close to our health and self care goals? Having an effective team is key to achieving business goals and overall success. But there is more to being effective than just having the skills for the job. Each member of a team can only perform well under two conditions. First, there must be an environment that is conducive to productivity. And second, each employee must be in good health. Many people forget the role their health plays in how well they do at work until they fall ill and take a sick day. A reminder that one cannot contribute when they are not at their best. Therefore, in people management, understanding why healthy employees are safer, happier, and more productive is of utmost importance. Also, employees go through uncertainties and challenges outside of the work environment, such as inflation, costly medical treatments, illness in the family, infertility, etc. Thus, today, when employers reimagine employee benefits, they need to look at it holistically, ensuring it encompasses all essential aspects of well being and wellness, such as good physical, mental, financial health of the employees. This forum is an opportunity for each of us to exchange openly the challenges we face in designing the new age employee well-being strategy, think collectively to derive actionable solution, share our best practices and use case examples of successfully executing an innovative well-being and wellness initiative through a future-ready employee benefit agenda. Before we start the discussion, I'd like to set in the goals for this roundtable. We will discuss the innovative approach towards nurturing a mentally and physically strong workforce. Next, the challenges you are facing in rolling out health benefits that encompasses holistic needs of employees, how the breakthrough in digital technologies is enabling HR to remodel talent practices, keeping employee welfare at the heart of it. Lastly, the matrix that you track to assess the outcome of your health and well-being initiative. So these are the four things that we are going to discuss in this roundtable. We have, the pandemic is behind us. We've crossed the pandemic. It's been 2 years now. So we are not going to talk about, what happened in the pandemic. Yes, the pandemic has been a catalyst to, a talent-centric culture. It has actually put the spotlight on the need for, long-term health planning of the organization. But in this roundtable, we are going to talk about the future. We're going to talk about how technology is enabling us to have a very, very holistic well-being strategy. And also, talk about data, insights from data to, design a mandate for employee benefits. So we'll start with a quick round of introduction. And in this round of introduction, I'd request you to, share your name, designation, plus one challenge statement, what you are facing in nurturing a physically and mentally strong workforce. So, let's cover the first aspect in the introduction itself. We'll start with you, sir.
So my name is Vardhan Sharma is the full name. I head the compensation and benefits for HDFC Bank. My title would be Executive Vice President. I think so. That's about. Ma'am mentioned the first two things. From a challenge perspective, I think the biggest challenge to this is balancing business priorities with, with the overall wellness agenda of the organization. Because at the end of the day, when many people often have a view that may go overboard on one side and let go of the other side, which is also very important. So I think the biggest challenge would be to have policies that help organizations balance the two. Others people say you be overly empathetic, and that thing becomes very, very kind of a hazy area.
Very well said, Vardhan. I think it's a common challenge with most of us. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Leena Wakankar. I head HR for ASK Group. One challenge I think that I would say we face is that self-care and employee benefits is not really a new area. I think COVID has only enhanced it over the last few years, and we have introduced a lot of benefits. The challenge becomes is how do you ensure that what are the right benefits for the employees? Because once you introduce something, you can't withdraw it. But at the same time, they have to be right enough where the usage is also there and you get your ROI. Because finally, apart from balancing, the ROI also gets challenged and questioned by the board.
Yeah.
Hi, good morning everyone. Sorry, I have a bad throat. My name is Lokesh. Full name is Lokesh Sikka. I am currently with Oneida. It's a 40-year-old listed entity. We are coming back in action very soon. I can understand the obvious questions. Right? We exist. So I'm also part of the board other than heading HR. And so challenges, yeah, we are a very mixed organization. We deal with people at contractual labor, blue collar and white collar mix. So putting everyone together and giving them at par benefits is a challenge because people are spread across locations, across factories, across units. So that's the mix, to manage mix together is a challenge.
Interesting.
Yeah, good morning everyone. My name is Richa Sachdeva Chatterjee. I'm heading HR and CHRO for IIFL Group. I think in terms of the challenges, while I will not repeat anything that the earlier panelists have said, but I think the unique one for us would be there are a lot of benefits we all roll out. And we are a large organization, large listed organization. What's important for us is to drive, like we drive user adoption for apps, we need to drive employee adoption, create more awareness, because there's a whole host of things that we are already doing and doing right. But how do I get more people to sign up for that and really invest in their own health? So I think that's a unique one for us, perhaps.
Hi, my name is Aditi. Aditi Mukherjee. I head the human resources for National Commodity and Derivative Exchange, probably the only exchange who's being represented here in this forum. I think the challenge that we face as an organization is two. One is we are a very small entity, okay? Unlike large scale where you have economies of scale, we are a mid-size organization. And when you have a mid-size organization, the challenge is compounded because you want to spend as much as you want to do for a set of people. So what is the right spend is that's the first decision point that I think for companies like us is important. Second is, you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink, right? So the bigger challenge that me as a leader in this, we are doing a lot of things, but how do you actually bring that change in culture? I think that is what challenge that I face or rather we face from the HR side. So.
Hi everyone, my name is Nitin. I'm Nitin Sinsare. I'm part of the Tata Motors HR team, and I look after the processes of performance management, compensation and benefits. Now I'll not repeat, a lot of has been said. Probably I would add is, one is, how do I, add the portion of preventive, health, so probably that's an area which I would like to work upon. And second is the utilization of the technology. A lot of data is available probably, but at least I'm not using that to the best of knowledge and application. So those are some of the things on top of my mind, just to add. Thanks.
My name is Ashutosh and I'm part of CLSA. I head HR for CLSA in India. And I'll not only borrow from what CLSA has a challenge, but in last 20 years of my career, what I have seen. I think one is on top of what all of them share. One aspect which is missing is historic precedence of anybody's health progression is something what is most important, which none of us, even with today's technology, are aware. Second thing is predictability on the health. So all of us know age and health is inevitable. They will deteriorate with time. But how soon and what corrective measures do you need to take is something which is missing on whatever offering which is there on the table. That's
Thank you, Ashutosh. Rupesh?
Hey everyone, good morning. My name is Rupesh Balakrishna and I head marketing at Ekin Care. Echo every single thought that is on this side of the table, and I'm sure there will be more interesting and unique insights on this side as well. For us, this is going to be a listening exercise as much as we'd like to contribute with the data and insights that our platform gives us on a daily basis with companies that we work with. And I think the table represents pretty much every industry that we work with today. So in my mind, this is going to be a 90-10, meaning we listen to you 90% of the time and we contribute 10% of the time. So we look forward to all of the learnings that we are going to gather here.
Thank you, Rupesh. I just want to reiterate the challenges that has faced so far. So, balancing between business mandate and employee well-being and benefit mandate is often a very hard thing to juggle. Then selecting the right benefits is another problem, Then the diverse employee base that we're looking at with respect to blue collar and white collar, because each one's need is so diverse. Adopting, how can we, encourage employees to at least adopt what's there? The problem with small size, mid-size companies, economies of scale do not allow you to have really a lot more infrastructural, well-being strategy. Then how can we make things more preventive and how can we use insightful data is another problem that has surfaced. And lastly, how can we ensure that we are recording historic precedents of what each employee is going through, because that's also very important, and focusing more on predictability when it comes to well-being strategy. So then we'll move to this side, and I want to just slightly change it. If there is any other unique challenge that is over and above these that have come, please share that. Otherwise, share one solution to these challenges. Don't want to make it very difficult for this side, but let's try that. Yes, sir. We'll start with you. Yes.
Hi, I am Anurag Mishra. I am a PhD scholar at IIT Bombay, and I'm also working with SBI Life. So I have just come back from my sabbatical from IIT, and I've restarted. So I'm working with SBI Life for last 15 years, and I'm not from HR side. So I'll give you the perspective from the probably from the research side, because I'm actually personally looking at the organization behavior as a research area, and wherein I'm working on the well-being side and on the how the digital apps can help in terms of to the organization, and what could be the probable role of the HR in doing that. So to the first question, what the nurturing the mentally and mentally strong employees. I think, to my belief, it is very important that as an organization, we should first understand what is the health of the organization. What is organization health all the time, right? So when we talk about the organization health means the transparency in the organization. The people are have open culture, open communication with each other, and for all of these things, it is very important that we need to have a mentally, very strong and very, very healthy employees with us who can help the organization to grow. So I understand that many of us have already said that there are various aspects in terms of the funding, the business mandate vis-a-vis to the health benefits to the blue collar or white collar employees. A health benefit is something which is which should be uniform irrespective of the grade. the employee, right? It should be uniform to everyone, because everyone is a human being and it should be treated like that. Right? So there should no discrimination as such. And it is today when the post COVID, when the mental well-being is being questioned in the all the institutions, right, and people are feeling anxiety disorders, etc. So it is what I feel is it is very, very important that the senior management should come forward, right, and they should try and tell everyone in the institution that they are themselves, maybe they can make up a story in front of the employees, so that the employees feels comfortable that people are, even the senior management is using those applications, or maybe probably, they are visiting doctors, and it should not become a taboo in the organization, because many of the employees today do not want to discuss about their health, right, on the digital app or to someone, because they feel that maybe it might be cost them a job or something like that. So it is what I personally feel is the senior management role in the institution is going to be a critical one to make sure that this is one of the solution what I just
Yes,
think of.
yeah, and being a PhD, you've actually taken some time to explain us also. That's also great.
You also allowed.
Next, please.
Guys, hi, my name is Arpit. I'm VP Sales at Econ Care. So as Rupesh said, we're here to listen, but I will leave you with a couple of thoughts. One, if you look at how wellness as a concept has evolved over the last centuries, from basic physical health to emotional and mental well-being to financial well-being, now a social or a community well-being, eventually to a spiritual well-being, right? A lot of us call it Panchatattva. These are also a function of time. And like you said, they need to be prioritized between what an organization needs to achieve and how best an employee can receive these benefits to contribute towards an organization's goal. We have moved from a trauma-based healthcare wherein we sought health after an injury occurred to preventive healthcare, to chronic healthcare wherein you could predict somebody getting a diabetes, for example, to a very interesting time today. And we at Econ Care are always thinking about the next phase, which we believe is emerging diseases, right? So it could be a monkeypox, which came and went. It could have been another COVID. We don't really know. The third wave or fourth wave of COVID could have come in and could have potentially disrupted another 6-12 months of business cycles. We don't really know. And there are so many such things that are already there in the ecosystem, like a TB, which have such potentials. How are we as organizations preparing ourselves for such calamities which are existing, which could emerge? And this is something we think is important to work on. Please.
Thanks. Hi. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Harpreet Singh Anand. I am a part of Kotak Group. I head the HR for Kotak Life Insurance. I'll have a solution and a challenge that I'm facing currently. I'll be a little specific because I heard there were generic statements which were there. One of the challenge which COVID had was that we introduced a lot of new things, but we withdraw a couple of things also. Okay, something like which were very costly and became costly, like mediclaims for parents. A clause saying that some portion of it will have to be borne by the individual. The copay option. Now, how do we deal with that, and how do we deal with that from an employee benefit perspective? So that is something that I want to sort of answer for. The second piece, which Ashutosh talked about, how do you predict the entire well-being of an employee? So I think everybody has apps right now. Okay, how do you ensure that apps gets tracked properly and people are able to upload data properly? We've done it pretty well. So, the only thing that we did differently was we collaborated with marketing in this. So instead of HR driving it, because the moment HR comes in, the credibility the threat aspect of it, saying that I am being tracked and will get recorded, goes off. So marketing comes in, the element of fun comes in, promotions come in, R&R come in. So that helps a lot. So I think that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Shruti Sharma. I head total rewards and benefits for Tata Capital. I would say, I think so all of us would have shared their snippets related to what is important for them in their organization. Two things come to my mind. One is definitely the work culture. Every time we say that every initiative is top driven, so why not this initiative also is top driven? Because we have to practice what we preach. That is first thing. Second, what I feel is we start these initiatives as a hygiene factor. So when I say hygiene factor, yes, Mediclaim should be there for everyone. There should be a group term life policy. There should be a group personal accident policy. It should be there for everyone. So it starts with a hygiene factor. It ends up as an employee value proposition when we are offering it to a candidate. And then it goes to an employee engagement score as a happiness score. But we have to go beyond that. And when I say beyond that, we have to institutionalize this concept that yes, this has to form part of my work culture. Why are we not thinking on an aspect that everyone is talking about, yes, there has to be a physical, health, mental health and all. I'm saying that take a step before that. What is that which is going to prevent us from having these issues? And why are we only talking about employees? An employee is associated with the family. There is a cost which is involved also, like when Harpreet spoke about the copay. In Tata Capital, we bear the cost for even families. So the aspect is that when a family member is also unwell, naturally your employee is also getting impacted by that. And what are we arriving at? Then we are arriving at a low productivity, efficiency. There is a disturbance which is there in the leaner teams. So these are all the challenges then which we are facing. So in my view, yes, there has to go beyond the employee engagement score and the happiness score, which we always say that yes, I have provided a benefit.
Hi, good morning. My name is Aparna Sikpal. I head the HR for NCR Corporation. So as in whenever you go for an ATM, there you can have our logo. Okay, so my challenge, I'll go with the challenge and one of the solutions, or rather not solutions, the practice that I would say that we should be going for. One is we hire a lot of fresh graduates. So whether the kind of benefits that we give or the well-being that we are talking about, do they really value it? Do they really want that, or they would want a voucher for going to a dining or maybe have some lifestyle experiences? So what do they really value? The other aspect, as not as a solution, but what I would say that how much ever that we do as bringing in the various initiatives or putting in benefits, a bouquet of benefits that we would be giving, do our leadership or the managers are talking about it? I mean, how much are they actually re-emphasizing on this is what we've brought and this is for you? And is this being preached and talked about at the line managers level? So, I mean, HR can't reach everywhere. So giving that kind of importance and education to their teams is what I would feel is one of the important aspects to it.
I'm Tushar Desai. I represent FIS. We are a leading fintech organization in the world. One of the major benefits of sitting in the last is that almost all of it is covered by everyone. So, but I'll just allude to what Richa was speaking about, from an adoption perspective. Obviously, COVID taught us a lot on leveraging tech, right? And we kind of leveraged a lot of applications, right? Virgin Pulse, Practo, etc. And we drove adoption through consequential accountability. The managers were made accountable, and from driving some of the campaigns through some of these apps, and the point systems really rewarded in a very hyper personalized way, right? The challenge that we are facing as of now when I'm talking to you, and a little bit was alluded by Ashutosh as well, is is it all going to be tech, right? Even I think Harpreet said, or what's happened to the human element to your health and wellness part of it, right? And that's why we want to make data as an ally. Supposedly, if we have run campaign around, stepathons or some fitness campaign around meditation, etc., right? And you've seen consistent top scorers in there, right? And suddenly they blip out of the radar, right? So there has to be some reason behind it, from an engagement standpoint as well, right? It can be health, mental, physical, or just disaffection, possibly the person is looking out, whatever, right? But that's the challenge that we are facing, the human element. We really want to get back the balance, right? Because we are not going to go back to where we were working, right? That hybrid is going to stay, right? So that's something which I want to put on the table. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, all of you. I am Bartanu Das. I am from L&T Corporate HR, Mumbai. I'll agree with Tushar. If you are towards the end, probably you do not have many ideas. Mostly people have spoken about it. So I was just thinking, what should I speak? I think it is again an extension of what you said, Tushar. It is more of a soft side, the cultural side, and the personal hobbies and interests are more important. When we look at productivity and performance, and of course the workplace group engagement dynamics, I think it is very important that I'm a big propounder of live life on the moment. So, and I experiment and practice a lot of things. And then I draw insights from the Indian Vedic management, our old generations in the villages, the way they used to live their life. And I find them, my father lived till 90s and he did not go for any ECG or till his death. Right? And primarily when I look back, grandfather, my father, some of the uncles and our villagers, then I find that they had some of the hobbies and habits very, very, very common, very simple, very day to day, and some physical activity. And both, diet was very simple, and of course they were doing everything, but physical activity, how can we really bring, export or import those practices of living life on the moment? One, physical hobbies, if we can inculcate as a cultural element, in the cities, I think we will see huge amount of transformation. And self-care is nothing but when I go for a 5,000-10,000 of steps or maybe go for cycling, I find that I am at a level 5 zone, right? Similarly, I interact, and how can we create some more champions who are carrying forward these legacies, who are very, very good, the Vedic management. And everyone in India looked back, even in the globe, they looked back the Indian Vedic management systems during COVID time, right? Why can't we sustain those practices and create one or two hobbies and interests amongst our employees, and that will lead to huge amount of transformation. This is what personally I believe, and I propagate and talk about living life on the moment. Thank you.
Great. Yes, Yamini.
Yeah. Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Yamini Krishnan. I'm Senior Director HR for AMESA region in IQVIA, which is a healthcare consulting organization. So we do everything from healthcare consulting, analytics, running a lot of government programs across multiple countries, to clinical trials and research. So it's about 19,000 employees in India and about 90,000 employees worldwide. So I manage a role which takes care of around 22 countries across Africa, Middle East and South Asia. The challenge is very different in terms of trying to find uniform benefits, at the same time adapt to local countries' requirement, identifying the local players who are at least able to connect and give us a sustainable programs. We managed to do that to a large extent during the pandemic. And so for us at IQVIA, wellness and well-being of our employees was always part of the culture and not a checklist. For a very long time, we believed that wellness is something which has to be driven through the employees. So we had committees working in different countries, taking care of all the programs and running these employee-driven initiatives with the help of management and HR. So apart from that, in 2021, I was part of the core team which launched the Global Wellbeing Project. Because a lot of countries like India had matured models, but this was required to be adopted to most of the other countries across IQVIA. So again, we depend a lot on the local players. We depend a lot on inputs which we receive based on requirements from employees across different countries. More than the challenge, I would say the solution lies in the simplicity of what is required and available and which can be sustained for people in different countries, because the requirements are very different. We did go beyond what was actually the regular practice during the pandemic years. So again, I think as Leena was mentioning, what is important is also to see what can be sustainable, because once you give it, they get used to it, you can't really take away something. But we definitely went beyond to see what can be provided to employees as really efficient and helpful benefits during the pandemic when it was required. But then we also managed to bring in a sustainable continuity to see how we can implement. We do have internal matrices in terms of how many people are using these services, how it can be adopted to the hybrid work models right now, whether we do physical sessions or bring in people, health checkups physically in the country within the locations, or even remotely, where we can continuously have webinars which give out information related to wellness. And we made it a holistic approach, not just related to physical health, mental, emotional, even spiritual and financial health. So it was really important for us to bring in elements of whatever is required for people and see how we can sustain that.
Very interesting. So a lot of very important points have come from this side, and we will further probe into some of those points. I'll just quickly reiterate, the importance of psychological safety, walk the talk, then come up with initiatives and then withdraw them because circumstances have improved. So we have to look for sustainable practices, and that is of course going to be a part of your transparent culture. Then Generation Z, do they value some of these well-being initiatives that baby boomers are creating for them? So how can we make it very pro Generation Z? Then high tech and high touch, balancing and finding a sweet spot between high tech and high touch. And also, can we make well-being and wellness strategy a part of an organization mission, purpose and value? As some of the organization can also do it who's into the health tech sector. So now I'll invite my next door, Dr. Noel, who's in a way an evangelist and a person who researches into well-being strategy, and from his vantage point, as he sees so many organizations across sector, so he can help us further set a context of this roundtable discussion to continue.
Sure. Thanks, Pooja. Good morning, everyone. Well, I've been listening to both of these, right, and I realized I'm wearing two hats as I sit over here. One is as a co-founder for an organization which I've seen grow from about 4 employees 6 years ago to about 260 employees as we speak today, and also the fact that from the business side of things, of where we are actually servicing 450 plus companies, what you've spoken today over the last few minutes, it's not different from any other. If I were to kind of put all of these together in terms of what Pooja just summarized, right, it boils down to basically 2 things. One is realizing that it's not a one size fits all. There may be differences within organizations because of the industry you're in. It could be because of employee strength. It could be because of geography or the kind of employees that you have on board. It gets further complicated in terms of the age of the employees, right? Young population, slightly elder population. And hence, there is no one size fits all, but actually there is a method to the madness. And that method comes through data like some of you all mentioned, right? At EconCare, when I go back to my first hat, the simple thing for us is, we taste our own dog food. When I say dog food, in the sense, this whole product that we've built, our own employees go through it, and we try to understand what exactly people are using, how do we encourage them. And whether it's a young guy or somebody in the middle age or whatever, at the end of the day, the experience of how a person accesses these benefits or these apps or whatever you call it, whether it's a Facebook or WhatsApp or an EconCare app, doesn't matter. at the end of the day, it's about how easy is it for a person, what is the recall that you get to get the person to come back to that one place knowing that everything is over here in this one place. Somebody mentioned about offering benefits and pulling them off. It's not the wrong thing to do. You don't want to over-clutter people with benefits. That's something we learned as well within our organization, that we kept building new products, listening to, like Rupesh mentioned, listening to what's coming in from the market. But we dropped a lot of things along the way because we realized that maybe it was too early. Maybe it was not the right fit for 80% of the market. And that brings me to the next point, that as responsible people, we are not going to be able to solve 100% of the problem. But if you're able to solve 80 to 85% of the problem really well, I think we should pat ourselves on the back. And we will continue to get better at it. I mean, we'll keep dropping things along the way, things keep changing, and we'll keep improving. And the last point that I want to make, where I said there is a method to the madness, is if you're not able to measure, we're not going to be able to implement, and we're not going to be able to improve. So as long as we are willing to give off on things that are not useful at that point in time, as long as we are able to identify what is going to work from a future perspective, obviously looking at the rearview mirror for direction to some extent. And last but not the least is being able to build that awareness, which comes through communication. And there are enough case studies to prove that with effective communication, adoption rates, engagement rates will go up. And this is across different age groups. Rupesh mentioned that our objective today is, as always, to get feedback, to hear what's out there in your minds in the industry, so that we are able to bring this learning back to the table. So with that, I'm going to shut up for now, and I'll hand it over to you, Pooja.
Thank you, Noel. So, let's start with the first part that we need to discuss is what is the secret formula to nurture healthy employees, physically, mentally, financially healthy employees. So, some crisp responses on this would be really beneficial. You can share your best practices. You can speak as a thought leader. Yeah.
So, ma'am, one question that I think since so many points came up, and Noel, thank you. I think you very crisply summarized everything extremely well. I think I must compliment you on that. Is that whose responsibility is it for good health? Whose responsibility is it? Your parents can go so far, organization can go so far, but now I'll just spend a minute on this one. If you see senior management or any management level, any organization, some people will be super fit, some people will be obese, some people will be physically inactive. Same organization, same stress, right? So I think a lot of emphasis has to be there on the discipline of the employee. Okay, because organizations can come so far, they can give you awareness programs, they can, but it's the employee's responsibility also to say, for example, an organization cannot decide what you eat. An organization cannot decide whether you get up 6 o'clock in the morning and go for a walk or cycle before coming to office. Right? The organization cannot take control of all that. I mean, it cannot. They will not have the resources, neither is it the organization's responsibility. So what is the responsibility of the employee in ensuring his or her own wellness? I think that is often it's very easy to say that it's the organization's responsibility. It's like blaming a school for your failure in life. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to say that it's my health, it's my development, and there are lots of examples, and I'm sure everybody would have faced that situation where people have left organizations because they said it cannot. My health is deteriorating, or I need to move and shift and go somewhere else. So organization can. It's not that the organization is totally out of it. Organization can prepare a healthy culture, a healthy a healthy environment where say the workload is well balanced, or there's not undue unnecessary pressure like the boss is harassing the employee for targets, etc., all the time, or the way person is chased for targets and all. But at the end of the day, an organization has two choices. Everybody has two choices. One is either you have an adult to adult conversation with an employee to say that listen, I mean things related to cost we can come in, like for example insurance premiums, medical premiums and all that organization can assist in, right? So for example, we have a top-up plan today in the organization. All employees know about it, but some take it, some don't. Why? I mean, it's a responsibility of the employee for covering their family. Everybody knows that life insurance is important, but you see many people who have not taken any life insurance, and some people take life insurance. So I think organizations are there to help you in some ways. But the primary responsibility, and all of us know that, say, for example, mutual fund can give you maybe a higher return than an FD. But how many people invest in mutual funds? No, either they're lazy or either they're too risk averse. So a lot of it also depends on the inclination of the employee in taking responsibility for their own life. And we're not talking about people who are like 7 years old or 6 years old, coming to school for the first time. They're people who spend careers, who are fairly, disciplined, fairly spend quite a lot of, quite elderly in age, I would say 30 plus, and not in 30 plus, once you enter the workforce, I think, you're senior enough to, you don't listen to your parents in which career you choose. So I think your health is completely your responsibility. And that is not given any attention at all. Everybody says organization. An organization should give more premium. Organization should take care of this. Organization can't decide what you eat, how much you exercise, how you manage health. And I think that should be a very, very important communication that has to be sent out to people also.
So that's an important point, that how can leaders create awareness among the workforce to make health, well-being intrinsic for themselves? Like how, there is so much happening with learning and skilling. And repetition works. So how can you keep reiterating the importance of practicing self-care and taking part in the well-being initiative?
So I think both push and pull works, right? I mean, Harpreet did say, if it's HR, you'll have some kind of anathema towards touching it. It looks more like a compulsion, right? So if it's driven by business teams, like some of the campaigns on Virgin Pulse, are driven by the business teams. They're owned by the business team. They're owned by the leaders. The leaders normally put up their personal updates around any marathons or any Ironman competitions that they go through, right? The other part is also governed through innovative policies, right? Like we have campus ambassadors, we have employee ambassadors, right? We also have fitness ambassadors, right? Like some of our PSU companies in India have representations in sports, right? Railways or some of the others, sorry, I can't recollect as of now. We have consciously started putting in quotas around fitness related recruitment, right? Because then they are made ambassadors, sports person at state level, at national level, and we actually make a big song and dance about it, right? That we recruited that on social media splash, right? So I think it has to be a push and pull.
Interesting point. So some of the organizations are also starting with designation like chief fitness officer,
happiness
CF.
officer.
Yeah, exactly. And very valid point that business managers should also help the HR drive these kind of initiatives. Some more best practices.
I think
I was just trying to say that in fact in my earlier challenge I mentioned that we can give tools, policies, everything we can give to them, but actually going to that app and entering the steps or monitoring it, syncing it, and all that has to be done by the employee, right? We have created, very similar to what Tushar was mentioning, role models, leaders walking the talk. Our chief business officer is a role model for us from a health and fitness perspective. We've also been able to stratify employees based on their lifestyle stages. Like for example, we've stratified people based on high risk, medium risk, low risk, based on their lifestyle choices that they have communicated. And these we are, sharing with them that, you, based on the kind of response that you've given, you have been categorized as a high risk, the predictability that you're talking about. We've been able to build it and sensitize people, but ultimately the bottom line is, one, we do so much of road shows, we do so much of, natak kinds, small skits we do to, kind of engage employees. But ultimately, the bottom line is it has to move the needle, right? Somewhere, I completely echo what you're saying, that it has to be
intrinsic.
Yeah. I think just to take that forward, what Vardhan said, very, very truly, it is a personal discipline. But at the same time, I would recommend and find that, as a policy maker and a propounder for change, we should also come out with a sustainable solutions, right? So I personally feel that it has to be very holistic, very integrated one. you cannot, while people have become very conscious about health checkup and all those things they are doing, but champions and ambassadors are necessary. But integrated and holistic, I means, again I'll go back to the concept I started saying in the beginning, that in India generally, if we can combine all 4 activities into one piece and then sell them as a product, or what we call the campaign materials, for example, your interests, your hobbies and your physical activity, and then your some of this Vedic formula that we talk of. If we can combine that, I find a lot of people are there, they do not do physical activity, but they are absolutely very productive, very serene, very, very peaceful, because they deploy some tool called meditation, for example, right? And they are so powerful. And there are some people who engages in some hobbies and interests like art, sketching or writing. For example, any day I write 2 paragraphs in the early morning, either LinkedIn or on my laptop or somewhere, right? I find so much of peace. And that day, if my mental power increases much more than walking 10,000 steps. So what I'm trying to tell is, we have to come out with very practical, sustainable solutions that works. Why the younger generations are more attracted in the cities towards gym and all those activities, but there are different entities. They are all different human beings in terms of personal well-being, personal discipline. When my wife does a good meal, cooking, she feels very relieved, she feels very happy about it. And if we give her a good, feedback about it. So therefore it has to be integrated one. It has to be a holistic one.
Yeah. So, please.
So I can share, to answer what you were asking. I think one of the key things is, senior management of course is there. One of the key things is the entire organization commitment in terms of, so it can be across levels and we have already spoken. So I can share about what some of the things that we have started doing over the last few years. One of the aspects is, adding to what Vardhan said, completely agree, it has to be employee driven. Organization can do as much only. We are finally a commercial organization, so we can keep doing and there will be a limit to it. So we have a quarterly virtual town hall called ASK Vani. So our group CEO, the other company CEOs, they all talk about how, what are the initiatives that we have taken and why they are critical, if there are any in that quarter that we have taken. That is one. Second is, after 2 years, the marathon is happening, but earlier also, we encourage as many as possible to participate, and together then we have a group which keeps updating. So for 6 months, so from the number over the last 5 years, from 20 to this year is 75 for a 500 member organization. So there is and we are targeting another 25 to really get enrolled. So that kind of builds a momentum of physical fitness in the employees. That is another part. Last year also, one more thing which we started was, it started with COVID, but we have continued, which I personally drive, is to get a doctor on a session. So twice in a quarter is what I do. And because I come from a family of doctors for generations, I managed to pick up a topic which is actually in the air at that point in time and engage with them for 1 hour, where the response has been tremendous, and that just shows that employees are interested in their health. They do reach out to the doctors separately. They do go for consultation. There are many questions coming. So there's close to a 50% attendance coming. So they are actually in the peak hour of the day, market hours, because we're a market-driven organization. They're actually taking out time to attend that session. So I would like to believe that, employees are certainly interested in their own health. But the last point is that, we also drive and keep reminding employees to go for annual health checkup. Because we sponsor it, we keep reminding them because it's very critical, but we don't ask them to share any data. So I still don't know how the predictive analysis can come, because India is way far behind as far as privacy is concerned. The day employees will come out and ask us, why are you asking us to sign this or asking for this data? I think HR will be in a lot of trouble, because I have no right as an organization to ask for that data. But what we have seen, I have personally gone for the first time this year. I immediately went to the doctor and asked that, is there any issue with, these reports? My brother himself is a doctor. I then consulted a specialist as well. So I think none of us will take it too lightly as long as we keep pushing them, reminding them. I think they will take it seriously. For those who don't, I think we just live with that.
So let me share some good practices which we do at Tata Capital.
Vardhan, I completely agree that it is employees, onus is on employee that he or she has to take that initiative of taking care of, their health. We actually did a calculation, and very honestly, we did a calculation. How many hours our employee spends in office? How many hours an employee spends after he goes to home and still is working related to office related matters? So when we talk about this, and when we talk about mindfulness, when we talk about yoga, when we talk about gym, and in a city like Mumbai or urban cities, where he is going to get time for that? I mean, I can definitely say that yes, employee is 60% responsible for it. Are we also allowing him to get that me time? So that is first thing which we said, that let's say no phone calls after 7:30, no phone calls on a particular weekend. If okay, fine, third and fourth Saturdays are working for us. So but first and second Saturday is your day, So that is something which we have started. You mentioned about the employee health checkup. We do not ask for an employee specific data, but what we do is we ask for a generic report. What is the reason behind that? Is we catch those early warning signals. How many are really, getting themselves near to a high risk, health risk indicator? What we do in these cases is then we actually conduct sessions for that particular cohort, saying that these are the benefits if you are going to look at, let's say, in terms of the coronary diseases, heart ailments. We also have something like tracking of data of our Mediclaim. Like we do have a Mediclaim policy. We get those claims. We don't go employee-wise, but we do check that data. From that data, we come to know which are the top 3 diseases where we are getting maximum claims. In Tata Capital, I'm open to say that yes, we have 3 which are topmost. One is the heart disease, that's a coronary one, respiratory, and the third one is gastrointestinal. Now, basis this is what we then take the corrective actions. First for the employee, and if we see that it is also getting spread to the families, then also to the families. So that's the way we go as an approach for Tata Capital.
Interesting.
Just like to add, I do agree 100% that you can't force the employee in that sense, but I think the role that organizations play, and I say that roles that organizations play simply because organizations help give the individual employee the confidence that the partner that they have chosen to work with or benefits, and the fact that they are sponsoring certain benefits is in itself a big role to play for organizations.
That organizations do.
Ultimately, yes, it comes down to individual employees. But going back to that point which I made, right, not everything or not everyone is the same. Now, health for an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old is very different when it comes to health for a 35-year-old and a 50-year-old. The concept that's picking up today is about flexible benefits. And as we talk about employees, we design programs. When I say we when I'm talking about all the organizations, we design programs keeping the employee at the center. Now, obviously, I heard people saying that we give benefits and it's not being utilized, so we have to pull it off. Why not put on the table 15 benefits and let the employee choose which one they want to pick up? Relevant to their health status, relevant to their age. Now, if I'm going to expect a 20-year-old to think that the company is doing great for me because they're giving me a health checkup, probably this guy will say it's a useless benefit, I need a gym membership. Why not give him a gym membership? And give the 35-year-old maybe a health checkup and give a 45-year-old the ability to go for a health checkup maybe twice in a year and maybe also buy medicines. And all of this could come at a very nominal fixed cost for the organization. Because at the end of the day, the numbers will drive and tell you who's using what benefits, up to what amount, when and how. While you're able to then, if I were to use what Harpreet mentioned in terms of the marketing side of it, right? I'm giving you 25,000 worth of benefits. You choose what you want. Hit the gym, buy medicines, take a health checkup for your family members, buy spectacles, get your teeth fixed, doesn't matter.
So I would like to add to that, Noel. I think, somewhere the thought processes are definitely changing. because while we were looking at a traditional ways of, as I said, policies, processes, or what is affordable, what is actually easily implementable. But I think right now the organizations are definitely looking at what is possible to get it done in a simple way. At the same time, what can be adapted quickly. So as you rightly said, the opportunities in terms of what can be given to different sets of people in different countries or whatever is already happening. It's just that how it can be implemented at large scale, or maybe as a uniform practices across multiple industries or organizations, is what I think we need to address. And somewhere IQVIA always believed, not just the health and wellness, because we do have wellness ambassadors and committees, as I said. Even when it comes to careers, because we have multiple generations at work, we always say you own your career. We don't drive it, as an individual, as an employee, you take that responsibility and ownership to do whatever you feel is right. So somewhere apart from what we can give them as a basket of benefits, we also look at what can be nudged towards the direction as practices. Right now what we also did in some of the countries is wherever we could not actually physically be present to give them any kind of health benefits, we actually told them what is available locally. You give them maybe Decathlon gift vouchers, nudge them in the direction of health, fitness, well-being, like you said, marathon, wherever they can participate. In fact, we actually champion and sponsor the Race for Health, which is for rare diseases in India. So we make sure that all our employees actually get to participate in some of these events and initiatives. So it's more like driving it through that community culture and feeling. It has to be led from the front. Most of our leaders are actually driving it top down. But at the same time, we have these WhatsApp groups of runner clubs, similar interest groups of people who go for gyms together, or somebody who can, go on even reading clubs kind of a thing, which will drive based on their similar interest groups of hobbies and everything.
Yeah, and help to develop social
Absolutely.
capital also in
Absolutely.
organization, which is really depleting.
Yes.
You wanted to make a point?
Yeah. Shruti, one of the points that I picked up from what you said was the early indicators and cohort-based, let me put it this way, like an automated journey, right? We spoke about this to one of our customers, and it's a very pertinent example. The challenge was adoption, and I think a lot of folks here spoke about the importance of an individual owning the responsibility. But when one of the the HR leaders came up and said, we need to drive the adoption beyond, they were around like 40% or something, and they wanted to do more. And that's when we said we could drive like a cohort-based, automated-based journey approach, especially for people in a particular risk group. And then the challenge was, okay, how do we communicate it? So we opened up all lines of comms. And one of the things to move the needle or have people get more serious about their sponsored benefits was to also talk about how much goes in the background to enable them to leverage maybe even one sponsored benefit, right? And let's take an example of a health checkup. And we did an audit even internally to see from the time an employee gets onto our platform, how many different touch points would they go and move in order for that health checkup to happen. And then after that, how does it come back in the form of medical reports, and how do we track their health journey and their HRA? We realized it was upwards of between 15 to 20 different technologies need to come together to make one health checkup happen for one employee. Now, in an age where there is your experiences are equated on the digital side to a social media experience, for us the question was, how do we make our healthcare experiences as seamless as logging into your Facebook or your LinkedIn? Because when you look at that demographic of 30 or between in the 20s to the 30s, they've all gotten used to click and buy, right? Click and avail a healthcare service or an experience is a way to probably boost or increase the adoption and engagement, while at the same time also create the need for, hey, you have all of this. How do you leverage all of the services over a period of time? While at the same time opening up the feedback mechanism to say what is working, what is not. And that gave us the confidence, and we are consistently improving the
the engagement score or the adoption score or the happiness score. The offshoot of that, when we spoke about this, even maybe we were doing a similar session in Bangalore, was how do you think of outcomes right at the top when you define your mission statements or your corporate goals? Because it's not, and everyone here spoke about the fact that it's important that it comes, that the leaders that set the example. But, and at least in my experience with larger corporates, it's not, health and wellness never really features even as a sub-bullet point. Right? And Anurag spoke about, what is the health score of a company? Like who's tracking that today? Is there a method? Is there an index? Is there a science behind how you track employee scores? And how does that trickle down into benefits? How does that trickle down into compensation? These are some of the things that we keep asking our customers, because for us, it's like Play-Doh, right? Our platform is like Play-Doh. We can really craft what is required as long as we start hearing more from our customers.
I'd request you to introduce yourself. You have joined us.
I'm Rima Ghosh Chaudhary. I am the CHRO for Datamatics Global, and I'm also the CSR leader.
Thank you. So before we proceed, I'll just do a small poll with you. I'll just, throw in some questions and request you to raise your hands if you, say yes or no. If you say no, don't need to raise your hands. So the first question is, do you believe that health and wellness needs to become an integral part of a corporate's mission statement and goals? So,
I missed last round, please. Can I?
Oh, yes. Yes, I had a point to make on the previous point.
Okay, sure.
So I was just absorbing all the intelligent inputs, right? So we are still a struggling organization, but thanks to COVID gave us a lot of awareness about health and everything. But for us, so like this is my 6th year in this organization. Since day one, we are following a approach which is more focused towards health. And though we are not a MNC, not a billion-dollar organization, but still this thing is part of our employee KRAs and appraisal also. Right? We have mandatory yoga sessions that people have to attend every month. Right? So we have managed to do that. And earlier when I mentioned that I am facing challenges, or I was rather, we have fixed that to align same practices and same policies to be implemented across blue collar and white collar. So I never meant that we discriminate between people. Right? So practices are same for all, but how to implement was a challenge. Right? We have people at remote locations also. We have people working in factories. We still have people who are not using smartphones. They are still on keypad phones. So to train them, to create that awareness that yes, this app is important. The challenge that I faced, we tried a lot of apps like Healthify and others for people. How to do the correct usage of app is very important. We can just launch it as a HR practice and then drive it, right? So wo hota nahi, it's just a check in the box. So we tried doing a lot of that stuff, but finally, as I think Sir also rightly mentioned, that HR is not the only function that can drive all this, and obviously not the organization also, but yes, it is partially organization responsibility also. We made some wellness ambassadors. In 2017 we started. So 17 we started wellness ambassadors, not from HR function, and their part care and responsibility is to drive that. So it's an organization culture is what I'm trying to say. Our chairman is 80 plus. He is doing yoga every week in the yoga session, right? So that's how I think we should drive it from scratch. I know this is the time that we learned from COVID and everything, but I think they're already doing it, and the only help I need from few of you is if there can be some technology or app that can go without internet, I don't know how will that work. Offline app or something is people still are not, they are not even willing to use smartphones. We gave them smartphones for free. They're saying we are happy with the life that we are.
Yeah. No, so the problem. So the problem is, I've had one of the leaders come to my session and say that, we think in India but operate in Bharat. So, there are multi layers of problems, but I guess, it's just about time. Things will
But I think Shruti made a very good point that I think, especially I think while we can leave it to the individual, I think by design, how many employees really have time for themselves, even to think about this? And especially in places like Bombay, Shruti, you are absolutely right. When you're taking 3 hours to travel one way, right? And when is a person has the time to really think about his health and well-being, and that's also one. I think it's a very, very relevant point, and I really do not know what solutions we have for this, because ultimately a person has to, earn money.
One of the things actually that had worked for us, which post-pandemic we have not restarted, is a doctor on facility. So, we used to get once or twice a week. So at least, if not anything, and this I've seen in my earlier organization in ICSI also, if not anything, if I'm feeling unwell, I'm feeling uncomfortable, by default, because there's somebody just available in the same premises, I will at least go and visit. So I think that is one aspect, because telemedicine is not really picked up, on the call it doesn't happen. But a physical doctor coming on premises helps to a larger extent.
And we have to give them a variety. So if anybody is getting stuck in traffic for 2 hours every day, probably you spend 10 minutes of deep breathing. So, have some kind of a tracking system so that you can track that. I'm also like a yoga.
Quick solution, Shruti, to that is people can do yoga in office also. We have 8:30, 9:30 start yoga.
So let me tell you very honestly, Lokesh, the business call starts at 8, ends up till 8:30 or 9, and this is not for COE functions. This is actually for business functions, which is.
And even though you have a gym in office and you have
Underutilization.
how many people will actually go and
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
office?
very low.
I have my doubts.
Not just that, it is the cynicism.
Exactly.
You're right, because that's the cynicism.
That is what I am saying. That is what I am saying. You say not today.
And doing that and having time for another.
Lokesh, it is not a recent phenomena. When I started my career, we had table tennis, lawn tennis, swimming pool. Nobody goes there.
Yeah, nobody goes there.
Because it's perceived as you have enough time.
3 decades before. Today also it mostly remains the same. We have gym,
So we need to change perception at the core level for all this to really start working at multiple levels. So I'd like to continue with the poll now. So the next question is very interesting. Do you rely on technology to govern, administer, review and adapt your current health and wellness benefit strategies? So 1, 2, 3, 5. So we've got 5 hands out of about 15, I guess. So we'll come back to you and know from you how you're doing it for others to also benefit from that. Is group health insurance your primary health benefit strategy? So, but not for others also. So we'd like to know what else is a part of your group benefit strategy other than insurance that takes care of well-being. So we got 5 hands about here. When HR is fully involved in a health benefit program, strategy to execution, what percentage of utilization do you think is achievable? So above 50%. Let's assume.
I didn't get that.
Above 50%?
Can you just rephrase it?
Okay. When HR is fully involved in a health benefit program, strategy to execution, what percentage of utilization do you think is achievable?
I would say strategy.
Yes.
Yeah. From strategy to implementation.
Yeah, when only HR is involved.
Only HR is involved?
When HR is fully involved. Yeah.
drives it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's possible.
It's possible.
Yes, it's possible.
Okay.
About 50%.
So we've got like 4 hands. Thank you for honesty.
No, I'm just looking at some of the things like, even the health checkups or vaccination drives. The vaccination drives was huge, 94, 95.
No, people have no option to take vaccine. I mean, that cannot be really.
Even I'm saying some of those things, it required you to really take quick steps. And when you looked at all those benefits, like, for instance, in 2021, the peak COVID second wave, we had to quickly change our policies of even extending additional COVID benefits of maybe going beyond what is required. and these were very, very popular and at least appreciated well. So I think we can definitely try. Yes.
Now there is a
But I think it's also to do with the need of the hour.
Yes.
It's not only we've done it.
Yeah.
The ecosystem is such
Absolutely.
that anything that you did in COVID.
You need to do it quickly.
Right, it's not about us being quick. It is about the entire ecosystem. Everybody was cooperated, everybody wanted to do it.
Correct. You know
Today you do the same thing, nobody's going to come for a vaccination.
True.
A booster.
Not just
We've been popularizing it for eternity now. The moment we said the first vaccination, we had lines. And we had to say that we will slot it out, we will take time, you come in time, we don't want mass gatherings and all that. And the moment the second phase came up and booster dose was announced, nobody even
because I think the first dose, it also was based on availability, right? You know, even the government and everything was struggling, so we had to step in.
It was the fear, it was the surroundings which were actually telling us that if you don't take that vaccination, some unfortunate incident might happen to you.
Yeah. People were scared.
It was the fear which has...
Coming to that, I've been hearing everyone share their bits and pieces. You spoke about integration of and a more holistic overview. You spoke about how it's whose responsibility is it, and can you give something and take it back. One thing that we haven't spoken about, and we are a bunch of leaders in the room, we've been through our organizations and we lead some of these pieces which are important, which impact many people in India today. One of the things that we're not talking about, and I don't know where, I'm talking about list of diseases, nobody is talking about mental health. Even today, as leaders, no one's really talking about that. After the pandemic, the real pandemic is mental illness today. How many of us are actually, this is the question I asked myself.
I thought that was included in the overall health. I thought we didn't speak about it because we have got counselors and all, who are available.
But what is so at least it's a challenge for my organization. You may have the best counselors, but how many people are willing to open up and talk?
We also capture in terms of how many connects are happening. If there are any, obviously they can't, we are very strong on data privacy. So right from even for that vaccinations, we had to take consent from employees to even agree for everything. But when it comes to EAP, we actually look at this data on a monthly basis in terms of what is the utilization, how people are reaching out. Are there any sudden alerts that we need to be aware of? So these things are being monitored. It's just that obviously, at least it didn't come up because we thought we are talking about a holistic approach of overall physical, mental, emotional, spiritual and financial. But mental health definitely played a bigger role in the entire wellness package of at least starting from COVID. It was always there, but it played a much bigger role. Right from advocacy, right from talking about it, creating awareness, and most importantly, we had even counselors coming and sitting in the office for drop-in sessions that people were comfortable coming and talking. And always available for anonymous callers, and we kept analyzing that data. So it is definitely there. It's just that we need to see how open your people are, and we kept encouraging that.
I think that's very important. I think one thing what she said, I think which is important also, is that I think when it comes to mental health, while I think, at least in whatever I said, I assumed mental health also.
Yes, it's a part.
Okay, is that I think in India, my personal view, and I may be wrong, and I stand corrected, is that I think people are still very, very edgy about coming out with their problems with respect to mental health, because for some reason, it is still seen as a stigma that something wrong with you as an individual. Whereas physical health, okay, I'm having a pain here, pain there. I mean, people walk with neck collars in the office or with waistbands as a sign of pride that I've overworked myself. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, when it comes to mental health, people, I think, I don't know, ma'am, you'll know better because you are in the space, and I know you also know better because.
But it's changing. I can definitely tell you.
But I still feel that somehow there is. I mean.
There's still a.
I was organization. People are not willing to talk about it.
So I'm just very interested. I would be interested to know that how many in your organizations, how many of you cover mental treatment or health treatment associated with
insurance benefit.
Insurance benefit, because we started doing it from last year.
We do. So it starts with mental health. Is what I feel. Because we all read in all textbooks and all the articles that if we are not, Absolutely. All your diseases are going to get, erupt because of if you're not, in a good
Mental state.
frame
Yeah.
of mind.
Can I
So
share
I-
my perspective?
Sure, please.
So, of course, these are all such interesting conversations and you tend to, keep on listening. But I think I must share this. So, I saw a very interesting shift happen in the world around us. So, AICTE, which essentially promotes STEM education, they organized a FDP about 1.5 years back, and you won't believe it, the topic was happiness. I was a speaker there for that FDP, and I ran a module for the people. So somewhere in the premise in the corporate world, if you have to relate to it, would be a healthy employee is a happy employee is a productive employee. Can be considered a bit simplistic, but that's the rule with which we go by. So with that premise, what we thought of doing was, see all these challenges we have faced, right? That people know it's good for them, but they don't come up for that. They don't take the benefits that we offer. So we tried something which was slightly different. We had these employee connect sessions. I personally connected with almost 10,000 employees across the globe through a team called Socially Distanced Yet Mentally Connected, where we harped on one thing, which is time is finite. End of the day, we only have 24 hours. But energy is infinite. So if we are able to maximize the energy through the 4 quadrants of life, which are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, then we can have infinite energy, which in turn can help us get very productive. So this was a call and people attended. So I'll just briefly explain this. I got introduced to this concept of energy principles while I was in the media and entertainment sector, which 15 years back and even now is an extremely dynamic industry. So we thought of all these issues, that why do we have this tendency to look at emails even in the middle of the night? Loo break, one check on the email, and then we see some email, somebody has written something, it just, we get all worked up and we think, इसको कैसे response करना है, दिखा देंगे. So all those emotions come into the mind, the negative emotions, which make it very difficult for us, it affects our health so much. So we say the physical quadrant part is all about your diet, nutrition, and taking intermittent breaks. 90 minutes if we are working, we must walk up, go to some colleague or if at home, go to the kitchen, talk to the kid, and just take a break. So that is something which is what the sprinters typically do. When they're sprinting, it's at full energy, full speed. But after that, there is a lull when they kind of renew. So we focused on that physical energy part, and we, talked about some tips which can help people on this aspect. The second part was the emotional energy part, which is all about appreciation. So the immense work that HR has done, which I'm sure all of you would vouch for, if each person has to speak on this topic, I'm sure we can spend 1 hour there only
Yes.
as to what kind of good work different people have done. So appreciate people for that good work, because it releases the happy hormones. It makes us feel good. The third part was the mental part. So there is so much of partial attention that we keep giving to things today. We are doing multiple things, we make a big deal out of multitasking, but that actually creates a poverty of focus on any one area. So we focused on that how do we get into that channelizing all energies in one direction. You finish that, you move to the next one. Multitasking doesn't work throughout. The last part was the spiritual energy part, which was not about religion or anything. Somebody mentioned about yoga, meditation, and connecting with the purpose. At work, if we know that I am doing something which I really wanted to do, then work doesn't feel like work, right? So have we achieved that? Because typically the stress that is created is the gap between our reality and our expectation. So in that 1.5 hour session with employees, we tried to expose them to these things, and then we carried out the battery of initiatives, which all of you have mentioned, that we did this, there is this benefit, that benefit. We don't have a measure yet, but that's the approach that we took, which I wanted to share.
Interesting points. Very
Excellent.
interesting points.
So,
So one
Rima,
more question
just
for the poll. Okay.
One more point. So it's very similar to what you have done. Last 3 years, we have been, also doing a lot of sessions. We also have apps. We don't track who's coming onto the apps and approaching employees, approaching the counselors or psychiatrists whom we have empaneled. but the numbers are dipping. During COVID, it really went up. But apart from that, but yes, have there been issues? There have been very specific issues that came up where employees took a break because they had to, there were psychiatric treatments that they had to undergo. That was a very different matter altogether. But otherwise, it is while at the initial level, and these sessions are like on a regular basis that keep happening. But it's very difficult to, unless there is, and that's where I think the human connect comes in. Unless my team is on the field, over there talking to them, we cannot pick up these cues. Only then we know somebody is facing some issue, somebody is, having some kind of a stress which we need to handle right now as a responsibility and take some, really need to engage and see what we can do. That's where, that is a real challenge, how to balance it out, honestly.
So the next question is, who is availing more sponsored benefits in your organization, male or female, if you're tracking those kind of data also? So for female, please raise your hands if it's more female.
We don't track by gender. We don't track by gender. I will think you mentioned this because now I will definitely.
Okay, next one and the last one. Chronic diseases like hypertension, diabetes, and obesity could affect anyone. Do you have a platform to capture these risk scores and act on the demographic insights?
Yeah, I was mentioning we have a risk scoring in the organization.
Hands up for the ones who have 1, 2, 3.
One question to Noel, ma'am, on this. Just it's a very, very interesting point you raised. Noel, what is your view, or your, and all the consultants who are in the room, or the service providers who are in the room, is that what about data privacy around these areas? So privacy around, my health should be in some platform and somebody's tracking it. What is, just your perspective?
So,
I'm sure
thanks for that question. I would have liked to address it at some point in time because, so one is, the employee is given the confidence that, first of all, the organization is not getting access to their medical information. Okay. HR is only facilitating the selection of a platform, and that's about it. I can speak from an EkinCare point of view and not for the others. We are a B2B2E only player. So if you go to the app store and try to download the app as a retail individual customer, you will not get access to it. A lot of organizations now have got into getting certified and encrypting their data and stuff. We did it way back in the day. That was the first thing we got off doing with. So on the application, we believe that every single bit of information, whether shared by the employee or gathered by us using technology, is owned by the employee himself or herself. It doesn't belong to EkinCare. It doesn't belong to the organization, even if the organization is sponsoring that benefit. What happens to that data? The data is used to personalize the journey. So for me at my age, my family history, my diet, my exercising levels, my blood parameters, so on and so forth, brings me down to a point in terms of what is the next course of action in terms of predicting my health risk over the next 3 to 5 years. What are the modifiable and non-modifiable factors in what I have shared that can help me improve my health? All of these nudges, feedback, pushes, recommendations, tips, articles, gamified challenges, all of these things come to me as an individual. What goes back to the organization is at a summary level, right? So if there are more than 10 employees of that particular age and gender, that's when the organization sees some kind of analytics. Less than that, you won't even get to see it because it's easy to identify based on your MIS and other stuff. What happens to this information with EkinCare? The employee has the ability to go back and say, I want to delete all my information on the platform. And that's the choice of the employee. We do have organizations where we sign an agreement saying that when the contract terminates, we are authorized to purge the information. Right now, that information still belongs to the individual, but I'm okay to purge that information, and I will give you a certificate that all the PI information that is there has been purged. But until that time, you will get access to all the medical information at a summary level, like what happened in this year, how has the health score moved in the following year, how many people are diabetic, how many people who have spoken about stress are hypertensive, are diabetic, so on and so forth. Okay. And I think there was a question around who's using more benefits, male or female. I mean, that's These are trends that we like to look at when we go through all this data, because we've done over 300,000 plus health interventions across doctor consultations, health checkups and stuff. I think, Rupesh, I'll leave that with you to answer in terms of...
That was an important bit of information in terms of understanding how you're doing this at the moment, is because for us it's easy to track based on the gender, right? The reason was, and when we track the news and all of these research reports, it helps us in a consultative approach to talk to our customers and say that, for example, if more women are availing annual health checkups than men in your organization, could you double click and find out the reasons why? Because now we have an external input in the form of a research report, and it's been published and I can talk about it, is women today have, thanks to COVID impact, a lot of them have additional responsibilities with respect to their homes, where they're not able to take the foot off the pedal, right? And this is by Deloitte, right? So it's pretty credible information. They don't have adequate time to focus on fitness versus men. At the same time, when we looked at the trends on our platform, we realized that a lot more women are availing annual health checkups, but they're not availing more fitness solutions than men. Men are taking more steps on our platform, and then if we have time, we'll do a demo of how we track these things. They're taking more steps than women. Another way to look at this information is in terms of those chronic diseases, hypertension, diabetes, and obesity, for example. Right? We realized that the male population on our platform is a lot more prone to those, or in the deep red scenario than women. Right? All of this, how does it impact in your benefit strategy? Is there a way to double click on any additional benefits that you could provide to your female employees versus male employees? In terms of the demographic, is there a way to amp up your fitness subscriptions because a certain demographic is utilizing it far higher, and because there are chronic issues that are creeping up in your organization? That's where the combination of tech, the KPI that you have with respect to your benefits platform and strategy, and the communication strategy that you've built as a result, all of this kind of comes together. Because the nudges that the platform gives you, like Dr. Noel said, is at an individual level. Like the HR will not have any intervention if for example, if I'm hypertensive and the platform is tracking that, I will probably get a nudge to say, hey, you're hypertensive. This is a good time for you to perhaps look at a yoga session, and that is sponsored, right? So click, subscribe. Here's a session you can go attend. That's how all of this kind of comes together, and this is the consultative mode that we get into a conversation with our customers.
Just one more thing to add. During the pandemic, there was literally no difference between male and female in terms of taking mental health counseling sessions. That's one more insight that we got from the data. There was a 4.5x increase. Now, because it was being done for the first time, we don't have a baseline number to say whether 4.5x is actually hitting the optimum numbers that people should be taking counseling sessions. But we do know for a fact that it went up. There is a very marginal decrease as of now, as we speak, post-pandemic. And I think that's kind of swinging from one end to the other, which we need to avoid as leaders, right? We tend to focus more on the mental, then we tend to focus more on the physical, and then we go back to the mental. So striking that right balance, again, by giving the employee the choice of choosing what to use, when and how, and what are the optimum numbers that we should expect. I think today, for a fact, none of us would probably be able to say what population smokes within different industries. We have that kind of information. We can say whether it's something, obviously we have to focus on smoking, but whether that's really out of whack with the rest of the others or it's within, right? For example, that's something which we can look at. We can look at other baselines in terms of saying, what is the right engagement levels to look at? Is a 60% optimum, is a 70% optimum, is a 80% optimum? So where we're driving with this is using the data to say, are we on track, or is there an area that we can further improve on and optimize on more than anything else?
So, Lokesh, I just wanted to check with you. You must have given Econ Care
platform to various organizations, right? So do you have any 2 or 3 use cases, right, without quoting the name of the organization, that what percentage of the people, employees, are using it, and what is the initiative taken by the organization, so that because of which the percentage of usage, because the first part is the employees should use it, right? These days employees are not using it because they think my personal information is getting shared and maybe later on I might get penalized. So I heard that some of the organizations are even giving some 10 minutes of time in the day to the employee, that if this 10 minutes all the employees has to use it, just to make them familiarize with the app, and also to make a habit of them so that they start using it. So you have any
So, I mean, there are multiple variables for this, right? And just to name a few, one is communication. Second thing is the number of benefits that employees are offered. The utilization and the recall in terms of getting back to benefits, whether it's one benefit vis-a-vis 3, vis-a-vis 5, makes a huge impact. How many partners are involved in that benefit? Because health is not, when I say health, again, I'm talking of health from a very broad perspective. What health means to one doesn't mean health to the other. So recall in terms of where to go for which particular service impacts utilization and engagement, right?
Just, sorry, I mean, I'm just asking a question and very related to what, because I was just thinking, say for example, if an employee does not say delete my data, is there, does IKINCare or any such, or maybe if you have any thought, is there a data portability that is, because see, after all, the human remains the same whether the person is in X organization or Y. So, just a question.
We've come across that situation because today the employee registers their number on the platform.
Yeah, that's what
and very often employees move from one organization to the other and they pop up in another organization and they start using the IKINCare benefits. Obviously, benefits get tweaked depending on the organization, but that portability is there.
I'll answer Anurag's question, and this is like my our point about poster child customers, and it's a recent customer. This is Bangalore International Airport. They're a quotable testimonial for us. And to your point, when we got the customer on board, there are, alluding to what Dr. Noel was saying, there are several steps in that journey to make people aware of what me as an employee is going to get as part of the benefit strategy that the company's rolled out. I think what worked really well there was the involvement of the leadership team in terms of how they went about communicating the entire construct of the benefits or the program that they've put together. And it also started with the fact that they were one of the first people to go and get the leadership team to get their annual health checkups done and use that moment, right? Like something like this, capture that moment and send the communication to the rest of the organization saying, hey, I'm the, so-and-so, I've gotten my health checkup done, have you gotten yours done? That was just a simple example. Like that, the number of interventions in the communications that they drove, working with us very closely, because since we have an employee's communication line open, we can reach out to them through push notifications, through email and other communications. In 3 months' time, you won't believe it, right now we are sitting at around 97% utilization of health benefits for the entire org. That's about 3,000 people, around 3,000 employees. And their goal, their stretch goal when they gave it to us was 70%, I believe. They said, let's see if we can hit 70. When we hit 70, they said, can you do 90? And when we did 90, they said, can we do 100? So it really depends on how invested the team is. And even for us internally, we also kind of think of categorizing or automating that journey for a HR leader to say the folks who are fully invested, right? Versus the folks who are in between, and versus the folks for whom it's just a checklist because of various other priorities. And and we kind of look at those personas. Okay, how do we consult with this leader if they're not in the first bucket? How do we move them from the third to the second to the first? And we can do that through several ways. It's communications, it's giving them more flexibility in the kind of programs that they use, more data and insights. There's many ways to do this.
Yeah. One of the things actually before we even embark on that journey with the client is, so we have the team that's actually going and consulting with the organization before launch. And then after launch, there's a customer success manager. And one of the key OKRs for the customer success manager is actually to ask the client, what are your success metrics? Right? Success metrics. Right? It's not about saying, I'm going to launch this program for you, but first understand what are you expecting to come out of it. Right? Consulting with the client to say that in similar organizations, similar size, these benefits, this is what you could typically expect. Where have you been in the last year? What has worked? What has not worked? How can we take it to the next level? So even for HR to go and sign off with senior management becomes all the more easy because now there is clarity. And for us, it helps us because we know what we are working towards over the next 365 days. I mean, in BIL, it was 3 months that we've passed, but over the next 365 days, how are we going to achieve it? Where are we on that journey? And, we keep titrating our efforts, communication, everything else, month on month, quarter on quarter to see how do we get there.
And BIL actually even tougher because now we have to sustain that level of engagement, right? So, couple of points I wanted to bring on is that essentially we're all talking about the same things, right? These have been around for quite a while. What we are still struggling to solve is the hygiene. So we talk about mental health. A lot of it starts with self-care, right? So Vardhan asked, who is responsible? It's out there. It's self-care. So there are people who will learn from their mistakes. They'll buy insurance. There are people who will not even learn from their own mistakes. I mean, how do you solve that? So mental wellness from us is extended to employees, but also to another integral part of their well-being, which is their family. Because if their family is doing well, this also will contribute to their mental well-being. So when we define dependence for your employee on the platform, it is not restricted to a spouse or a child. It could be a parent, it could be a brother, it could be a neighbor, it could be any 6 or 7 people that employee thinks are dependent on him or are responsible for his or her well-being. Not only for the emotional wellness program, but for the other benefits that are available through the platform as well.
Okay, so in the last segment, we are going to discuss what are some of the metrics that you are tracking to reiterate that healthy employees are more productive and also prove the business case of, spending on these well-being wellness initiatives.
I'll take probably a minute because I'll have to rush at 11:30.
Okay.
What we have done for the last 2 years now, or a little more than 2 years, is we have a well-being score in the organization. And through the well-being score, we see how we are moving in the direction. I mentioned to you about the stratification of our employees in various health categories. Obviously, this information has to be volunteered. We don't do it on our own. And HR is nowhere involved in this, okay? But linking that with a well-being score at an enterprise level is what we have been able to achieve. Obviously, it's a long way journey. We are just in the phase of transformation. It's not so easy to kind of create a perfect index score, but we have at least been able to identify the parameters under which we want to, link it up to a well-being score for the organization. And one thing that we are doing, just not a matrix, but how does that index lead to something more concrete action or solution for our employees? Is what we are trying to do, is providing them a complete end-to-end personalized coaching journey, which covers all aspects of whatever we have discussed today. On Friday we are having a complete kind of engagement roadshow with our employees on the well-being score, and kind of telling them how we've moved, and we track it every 6 months. Just for the frequency part. And I think, again, I said it's just a start of the journey. We are a long way to go, but So
I'll share, in fact, there are certain data points we all have and how we are using it at Tata Capital. First and most important is related to leave data. Available to every one of us.
Very good point.
So we are talking about sick leave. I understand somebody might say that मैं बीमार नहीं हूँ फिर भी sick leave ले लेता हूँ. So that falls factor. No, we have a diverse workforce. So
But just how many leaves is the organization allowing people to pay?
exactly. So that I was coming to that. So first,
Very good point.
first and most important is the leave data easily available to us. Second, and the other important point is we always talk about our performers. Always. We say that 20% of the population is delivering 80% of the result. This 20%, if we are talking about this 20%, what is their health risk score? Because if you are going to actually rely on these 20%, are there something really a healthy employee? And when I say healthy employee, I buy to that point of physical and mental well-being. So that is the second data point. So we try and link it also to, now you might say that this is not a forum for talent, but yes, the talent also comes to play in this. The third and the most important point is we do track the attrition data. Everyone talks about attrition, everyone talks about absenteeism. Nobody speaks about presentism. So when I talk about presentism, it's not just physically present, also it has to be mentally present. So it has to be talking about the contribution. So we also look at that data point, though that we may not have achieved success so much in terms of, establishing the facts. We link it to the fourth data point, that is productivity. Because that's where we are talking about an employee who has a good health score, being able to contribute. What is that productivity which we are actually, arriving at when we are looking at that individual or that team? And the last point is definitely related to the Mediclaim and what is that areas which we are taking it as symptoms.
I think you summarized for all of us.
I think if you actually have the medical information, the risk information, right, and you marry that with your hospitalization claims,
absolutely.
It's very easy to figure out which are the claims that you could potentially avoid into the future, right? How many of them have already gone through that particular event of hospitalization? How many of them are potentially still in that list of getting there? And like you rightly mentioned, about being able to predict, right? And that's where the data, if it's available, helps you put in those right interventions. Forget about the cost part. The cost part is always going to be there. Those claims will come in, if not today, 3 years down the line, which is also good. But the productivity part and all is very important to agree with that.
We just do one thing, what Shruti mentioned, very, very relevant point, I think. Is we just ensure, if you go benchmark to see, across organizations, what is the leave utilization? Your entitlement is 30 days, but or 25 days or whatever. And how many actually end up taking the full quota of leave, because actually that's very important for
that will depend upon the policy leave this thing. A lot of people have
accumulation.
No. But what I'm saying is what I'm saying is that's point. But the thing is,
So we have changed the policy, no carry forward. You have to
Exactly. That is
when you do that, you will see the leaves will go up.
So for example, all progressive organizations have now done away with the carry forward of leave.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, even if you go 25 days or 30 days, how many are actually using it? I don't know. In my career, I've seen people use 50% or 60% because the culture of the organization sometimes can be such, okay, that of the department, because ultimately we are represented by managers in the organization. Employee experiences the organization through his manager, not through the brand or through whatever. Those are nice to have, but and that's why I think Shruti's point is very important.
It also depends upon the culture of the organization.
If going on leave is seen as chutti pe ja raha hai.
The sales-driven culture where you are working on Saturday, Sunday also. It's also taken granted you can do whatever you want to, whenever you want to. So there's no leave culture in the industry.
So there has been a research that after the pandemic, the leave rate has actually gone down. With remote working, it has gone down. The number of leaves employees have been taking, it's been a global research, and so that's proven. Don't know how true it is in the Indian context.
What time this program will end?
I think we close at 11:30 because everybody needs to go. I understand it's a working day. So in the final, I would like to conclude that in this era of great resignation and war for talent, while raising wages is one way to attract and retain employees, research conducted by Paychecks and Future Workplace among 603 full-time workers during November 2021 found well-being benefits to be a key criterion when applying for a new job. These well-being benefits probed in the study range from financial, mental, emotional, social, physical, and career well-being. So thank you all of you for coming today, sparing time to be a part of this discussion. I hope a lot of ground was covered. We had in-depth discussion and you're working with great key takeaways.
Yes.
I'd also like to reiterate a few points that empowering the employees to select the benefit they like is very important, and for that all organizations need to have an infrastructure in place wherein you have a huge bouquet of well-being activities, initiative and benefits for the employees to select from. You have to encourage employees to prioritize on mental and physical health and well-being, so that awareness is on us, as leaders, to walk the talk as well as to have that communication with your workforce so that they learn how to prioritize, make it a part of their daily routine. A healthy employee is a happy employee who is more productive, like you mentioned. And I also really like the statement that you made, the program that you ran, socially distanced yet mentally connected. I think it's a very, very powerful statement, very powerful tool. So I'm really going to walk away with this one. And I think it is something we require at every connect that we have, with our friends, in our workplace, with our family, everywhere. Even some other important points that work for 90 minutes, take a break. Emotional energy comes through appreciation. A simple thank you does a great amount of job to make you feel motivated, energetic, and it's like a pat in the back. Mental health does not mean multitasking. Multitasking may not be that great for your mental health. So focus on one thing at one time. Emotional, spiritual health is also very important for the workplace. And in the last, mapping your well-being journey to your stock market performance is the way forward. And that is going to help concretize this, activity. Why the laughter? Do you want to say a closing statement?
I think that's perfectly well summarized. Thanks everyone for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It is a pleasure. So thank you from ETHR World and Econ Care for joining us. And now we'll proceed towards a group picture.